welcome to our podcast, Broker Banner Denver, where we are breaking down barriers to home ownership. I'm your host, the real estate expert, Kim Davis.
And I'm Patrick Williams, the mortgage guy. We're here to help inform and educate about the financing and home buying process.
And on today's podcast, we are going to continue our series on breaking down the Denver metro area. And today we're going to focus on the west side.
West side!
We're also going to talk about the NAR settlement that just came out today, which we're shooting on a Friday. And then Patrick's also going to give us an update on interest rates.
Yeah.
But until then, how'd you do on Snowmeggedon?
My shoulder is a little sore. My snowblower would not start.
Your snow? Oh no!
So the thing is we get these storms maybe once a year.
Well, they're saying the biggest one in 3 years.
In 3 years, this one was. I've used my snowblower last season, but I haven't used it this season.
I've used it a couple times.
Yeah, and I prefer to shovel it. I feel like by the time I get it started and I'm halfway through, but like when you get a heavy wet snow like this, they're good to have. So
you know what's good to have? A husband who snowblows.
Well,
that's great.
I tried to be that, but I had to be a husband who shoveled.
I know. I saw pictures of your wife shoveling with you.
I think she did. I actually got some help. So the other thing it's nice to have is a son home from college.
Yes.
He's like, it's 80 degrees in Arizona right now. This sucks. But no, it was good to have him home, and we kind of had a snow day. Right. I ended up working more than I was wanting to yesterday, to be honest. I think everybody's home on a snow day, and they're like looking at loan stuff and like getting stuff. So I worked quite a bit of the day. Yeah. If I wasn't shoveling, I was on my computer.
I was doing some home searches, was dealing with some contract issues, and so I got some work done too.
Well,
that's
good.
The thing about real estate and mortgages, right? We just continue to
the
work.
Contract, there's no snow days in a 30-day contract, right? So we've got to make sure that we're still hitting those dates and everything's in order regardless.
Right, but it's beautiful, and it's going to be like I think 60 on
60s.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Of course, this doesn't come out until Wednesday, so
Snowmeggedon will be over by then.
Snowmeggedon will be over.
Yeah. But no, it was a big storm. I think I got 18 to 20 inches probably at my house.
So we're at 6,200 square feet. We live
6,200 square feet?
Sorry, square feet. You can tell I'm a real estate broker, right? I'm talking about square feet. We live at 62,000 feet. 6,200.
Yeah.
Well, I said 1,000.
You did. I know. Yes. You're a mess.
I am a mess.
That's okay. We'll recover.
6,200
feet above
sea level.
Okay, I'm not quite that high. I think I like 59 where I'm at.
Okay, so not very much higher. But I think...
But you're right up against the foothills.
We are. Yeah. We're just on the other side of the...
So what did you guys get?
The foothills. Well, we only measured once, and I think it was at 17 inches, but then it continued to snow.
Morning.
That was yesterday morning. But it seemed like it was melting or it was just packing. And so, I don't know, we got another... Before we even went to bed, there was another 4 or 5 inches where we had...
The nice thing was we shoveled early, and the driveway was just kind of wet.
Oh.
Like once you shoveled it off, the snow kept falling, and it melted when it hit the driveway.
Part of our driveway is north, and then it kind of turns to the west.
So you did not get the melting.
So we have... not really.
Yeah, the north-facing driveway. Maybe we should talk about that. In the Colorado context is a very important feature.
It is. And I'll tell you what, I've had clients who will not buy a house that has a north-facing driveway just because they don't want to deal with the extra snow that there is.
I kind of looked, and most people are buying houses like more spring, summertime.
Right.
Right? And I remember when I bought my house, I kind of looked at it and I was like, I think it's more east. Oh, we're totally north.
Your house now?
It faces more east, but my neighbor has this massive, 40-foot blue spruce that pretty much just shades the driveway all day. And so, if I do not shovel and stay on top of that driveway, it gets icy. It gets, it's a big pain.
It's bad. But if it's your dream house, you should still buy the house, even though it's north facing. You just have to know.
My deck on the back side of the house is like southwest facing, and so it's really warm. Even like last weekend when we sprung forward, I got the couch cushions out on the deck. I was like, oh, this is great, right? Because it was really nice out. Yeah. So there's.
This is the only time of year that we have a covered deck in our backyard, and so it's the only time of year when I'm like, oh, I wish that it wasn't covered, but I like it covered most of the time.
Come July, you're like, this is nice.
Come rest of once it gets nicer.
You know what, we have
and ours is part half and half.
It is. You have both. We have an open one, which I still haven't shoveled, by the way. I need to get out there. I feel like there's so much weight sitting on that deck with all that snow. So that's between the driveway and getting the cars out and everything, it's just.
Well, Jay went out and shoveled part of the spots for the dogs so they could get out there and do their business.
Yeah, my dog.
Not on the deck.
Not on the deck.
Not on the deck.
My dog this morning, I let him out early. And I shoveled for him a little bit, so he had a spot. So he does his thing over here, but then he starts heading down into the backyard. And I mean, my dog's little. Like I thought he might get lost under the snow out there.
If you haven't ever watched YouTube, Patrick is a bigger guy, and they own this small, cute little poodle.
I do. So there's a story. Would you like me to go into the story of
No,
how
we don't have to.
Bingo?
We don't have to go into it. I just think
there was one time that
Patrick and his poodle. There's been times he's a little older. There's been times I think when you've been walking down the trail and you've had to pick him up and walk him home.
Yeah, there was. That was the story that came to my mind as well. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we live
I'm
close.
Here for.
There's the Bluffs Park in Lone Tree, and we live close to that. And I took him for a walk when he was younger, and he was just too hot. He was done. He was not walking anymore, and he just stopped and he wouldn't walk. I mean, he's not a big dog, but so I just picked him up, and I'm walking down the bluffs, and these two ladies come up, and I'm like, I know, like a really manly picture here of me carrying my poodle. He's a good dog. He's actually getting really old and starting.
I know.
He's actually doing better though.
Good.
Yeah. So
Bingo is 15.
14.
14.
Yeah.
14.
We got him from my wife's brother who breeds golden doodles.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
okay.
So he was kind of, they were going to make mini ones, and I think there were some issues there. And so I came home one day and I had a dog. That's kind of how it works. And guess whose dog it is?
Your dog.
He's definitely my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in Colorado, everyone should have a dog.
This is seems to be the case.
I mean, I know more people with dogs than without dogs.
Yeah. I'm definitely more of a dog person than a cat person, that's for sure.
Well, I'm glad that Bingo is having fun in the snow, and our dogs are having fun, and that you made it through Snowmeggedon.
I thought I was going to have to get my blizzard boots on and walk down into the backyard to rescue
hopefully that shoulder will heal.
It'll come around. I think it's okay.
Maybe you need to build it up a little.
Oh, maybe. Maybe I should hit the gym. Thanks, Kim.
I'm not saying that. Wow.
I mean, poodle and my weak shoulder. I mean, you're probably right.
That's what friendship's all about,
That's
Patrick.
true. If you didn't give me a hard time, I'd start to worry.
So what do we want to talk about first? You want to talk about the west side, the NAR settlement?
West side. Yeah, let's talk about the west side of Denver Metro. Okay. So we talked kind of about the south side, Highlands Ranch. I mean, west, are we like Chatfield?
Centennial. Yeah, so I think the west side is, back in the day when I grew up, I would say anything west of I-25, but, you know, that's...
but then you kind of get southwest, too.
Yeah, and then you also get the central. But, let's talk Golden, Morrison. I mean, do you consider, I would say
Littleton?
Arvada, Wheat Ridge, all the way into part of Littleton, because as we said, there's southwest Littleton, which is where I live. But Littleton kind of does this curve if you follow the C470
I
trail.
believe technically Sterling Ranch is Littleton.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Yeah.
Right,
so,
right.
but I would. That's almost
and technically Highlands Ranch is Littleton.
There are parts. There's
it's called.
Wildcat. I mean, most of the time when I put my zip code in, it says Littleton.
Yeah.
But like Wildcat Ridge, there's some neighborhoods that are like in Highlands Ranch that are not Highlands Ranch.
Right. That are considered Littleton.
Yeah.
I wonder if they get the rec centers.
They don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was on last week's episode.
Yes, if you're curious about those fabulous Highlands Ranch rec centers, listen to our previous episode. Today we're talking about the west side of Denver. The west side of
Denver, which is where I live, I have lived in the Denver metro area since the 90s, and I've always lived on the west. That's not true. Most of the time I've lived in the west side. There was one moment I lived
downtown?
Close to downtown, yes.
I think we all had that moment, right? At least for like maybe 20s. A year. Yeah.
But for the most part, went to Golden High School, grew up in Golden, you know.
Golden's
and then
awesome.
Now have lived in Littleton since I got married in 2002. And so I love it. But the reason to live on the west side, I think, right? People say, why move to the west side? I think hiking, if you're a hiker, a biker, So many great
Outdoors.
trails. Outdoors. Yes.
Yeah.
Hiking.
You've got the foothills. You've got
So
everything
many
just
trails.
right outside your door, basically.
And we literally take our road bike or mountain bike right outside of our door, and we don't have to haul it anywhere.
I don't even think you had a bike rack for quite a while.
Yeah, we don't really have a bike rack now. We do have one. It's really old. That was a gift given to us years ago. And then we used it to do a triathlon in the Lake to Lake triathlon. Remember?
I do.
When is that? June.
June.
It was on Jay's
In
birthday,
Loveland,
June 24th
right?
in Loveland last year. And it broke on I-25 with my bike on there. So
Wow,
only
that's-
one side broke, and then we were on the side of I-25, like repacking our car so that,
So what
to put
you're
the bikes
saying
in.
is
Yes,
replace
sorry.
your bike racks frequently.
Or maybe more than once every 20 years.
That's maybe not frequently.
Or maybe just the straps of
Yeah.
them.
So
But
what kind of, obviously
great.
I mountain bike.
Yes.
So there's a lot of trails in Golden, west side of Littleton,
Yep.
like Deer Creek.
Deer Creek Canyon.
Yeah.
Of course, people who live up Deer Creek hate that. Not everybody, but there's some biker traffic that you have to worry about. But there's some great hiking. You have Deer Creek Canyon.
Yeah,
Park
I mountain bike up there as well.
Right. You have Golden. You have Table Mountain. All the Table Mountain.
Yep. There's North and South
Right.
Table Mountain.
And then as you
White
continue
Ranch.
up Arvada, there's definitely a lot of hiking spots up Highway 93 that leads you kind of into Boulder.
Golden Gate State Park is really
Golden Gate,
close.
beautiful. And then as you head up, which is the foothills, Conifer, Evergreen, Genesee, Lookout Mountain. But I mean, those are considered west side. Still the suburb of
Is Evergreen
Denver.
considered a suburb? I mean, we talked
Yeah.
about Castle Rock last time. Is
Yes,
Evergreen a suburb of
Evergreen,
Denver?
yes,
Is it?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Or once you
Absolutely.
hit the
I
470.
think the
and start
weather
heading up the hill.
changes, but I mean that's still wonderful.
I mean,
reasons to
Genesee
live up
and
west.
Evergreen, I mean, it's like
Right.
living in the mountains with the access to the metro area. I mean, you can't beat that, right?
Now I'll tell you, it's not really a negative, but if you really want to say a negative about living on the west side, I think the views aren't as good on the west side because you are so close to the mountains that
That
you
you
don't
just-
really get. Like I think Highlands Ranch has some great
Parker.
views. I think Parker, when we talk about the east, I think that'll be
Yeah.
a positive. Talking about the east is beautiful views. You have those views that you see that when they advertise Denver, right?
Yeah.
The Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
And being so close, I know it's not really a problem, but I mean, you see the foothills. That's
You see the
basically-
foothills
you don't
because you're
see
right
the
there,
mountains.
but you also are,
Right.
if you're heading up to go skiing, you're on 70 and headed up Floyd Hill within minutes. Like, I mean, so it's a drawback. And I think what matters most is where's your office? Do you have to commute to work every day?
Right.
And then what do you like to do? Like, if you like to recreate in the mountains, you like to hike or mountain bike, and that's your priority, then you should move to the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great on the west side. I mean,
And-
not that there's not biking on the east, it's just a little more flat.
There's not much mountain biking.
Right. There's
on
not
the east
mountain
side.
biking and
There
not
is actually
hiking
a couple little
and
places you can go.
right. Well,
Yeah.
but I
No.
mean, Arvada, Wheat Ridge,
So-
Lakewood, you're so close. Littleton,
Absolutely.
you're so close, and so
Yeah.
that is why I think most people should
And-
move to the west side. But west side, the homes are a little bit older. It was developed,
There are some
Earlier.
pockets of newer homes,
There
right,
are.
that you can find, but in the majority, Lakewood, Littleton, Golden, those are all areas that have been pretty developed out.
Yes.
And so if you're looking to buy something there, you're probably going to pay a premium if it's updated.
Right.
If it's not,
right. And just know that you might buy an older house.
That's okay.
Versus
So-
Parker versus parts of Aurora.
I've heard somebody say the 3 rules of real estate are location,
Location.
right? And so what matters most to you, right? Like, are you close to a downtown Arvada or
Right.
a downtown Golden? Do you have the recreation right out your doorstep? These are opinions, right? Like not everybody's going to fit into a certain area. It's really, what do you want?
Right.
Like, what's most important to you? Do you want to be close to work? or do you want to be close to recreation?
Hey, you can still work on the west side of town.
There's definitely a lot
the
of
Federal Center is on the west side of town.
Yeah.
Lockheed Martin.
There's a lot over
is
there.
on the west
Yeah.
side of town.
That's what I mean. It depends.
It's not the Denver Tech Center. It's the commute is usually longer. We live the furthest away that you can get from DIA. We are like the complete opposite.
Much the opposite. Yeah.
But it takes us an hour to get to DIA. But not everyone in the West, depending on where. But
I mean, Lakewood, you can get downtown in like 15 minutes.
Right. Well, today driving here was great. It was like Denver of old. Like
no traffic.
Hardly any traffic. I mean,
the roads were. I will say, hey, kudos to Denver and
CDOT. Good job,
yeah,
CDOT.
like the roads were. They took care of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go to Castle Rock this morning for a closing, and I-25 was like dry.
So now we just gotta get all the neighborhoods dug out.
That's
some
a
of
good
the
point.
neighborhoods are struggling a little
We
bit.
did get plowed this morning, but the plow basically pushed all the snow right up against my son's car. It was like covered all the way over the roof. So we were digging that out this morning.
But one more thing, I think we didn't really touch on it too much on the South, but great little towns, great, downtown Arvada, downtown Golden, downtown, well, Littleton is, more south, but downtown Arvada, we said that.
Well, there's
Westminster doesn't
Belmar,
really have,
right? Like
Belmar
Lakewood.
is great, that's right, in Lakewood.
So downtown Golden's fantastic.
Golden is great.
Yeah, with Clear Creek's running right through there. You've got a lot of cool breweries, restaurants.
Or Coors,
Yeah, but what about New Terrain? Like,
I
like New Terrain because they got food trucks. It's right at the base of North Table Mountain. I can go for a mountain bike ride, come down, hang out, look at my bike, make sure nobody steals it, have a beer, get some food from the food truck, and nobody looks at me funny when I'm wearing like dirty clothes because I was mountain biking.
I think that's pretty much anywhere in
Denver
during
not always
spring, summer.
Maybe. I like New Terrain. That's a cool spot.
But anyway,
and downtown Arvada is cool too, though.
Right. I'm going to tell you should live on the west side of town, but I'm probably a little bit biased, and you would tell everyone to live on the south side. So we might need to bring in people who live up north or
on the east side
and tell us all the great things about.
I think every part of Denver has its own unique kind of vibe and downtown areas and cool spots to go to. It really, like I said, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, right? And maybe, again, commute. I mean, a lot of people are having to go back to the office, and they're kind of regretting that COVID move where they thought they were going to be working remote forever, and now they're having to go back to the office.
Well, and let's talk about, we kind of touched on school districts on the last podcast, where on the west side is pretty much all Jefferson County schools. So
pretty much,
from Littleton, Littleton is so big that has 3 different school districts, but when you make that turn on the southwest corner from Wadsworth on, it is all Jeffco schools all the way up until about Westminster, I believe Arvada, Westminster, because there's Horizon High School and those things where I believe that's still Jeffco. Stanley Lake, which is in Arvada, is still, so that's still Jeffco. And then it goes into Adams 12 as you continue to go up north. But then I think once you get to Westminster, I would consider that north.
I would too.
North. So we'll talk about that in the coming up 2 podcasts where we talk about north and east to wrap that up. But that's just our quick.
So you pigeonholed me there a little bit. Like I've lived on the south side of town because I've always had an office in the tech center, and I go to the west side a lot because I do mountain bike and.
It's true. He comes over to our house a lot.
I do, and I would also like to. I mean, I think I'd be down to live in Golden. Golden is such a cool spot.
I love Golden.
Yeah.
Love Golden. So I lived there for a lot of my life.
So I don't know that.
Okay.
I necessarily.
Okay.
You
sorry.
may convert me to a West Sider.
Come on
All
down.
right, yeah.
Or up.
Well, so do you want me to talk about interest rates a little bit, and then you can go into your.
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Okay. So we did get some inflation numbers coming out again this week. Wholesale.
Please tell me they look good for interest rates.
Wholesale inflation did not look good.
Oh,
Bad news, unfortunately. We're still about a 50-50 shot of an interest rate cut in June, but that's down. I mean, at the beginning of the year, everybody was like 6, 7 interest rate cuts as we go through 2024, and inflation has just not done what everybody thought it was going to do. And so we are kind of seeing maybe it's going to take a little while longer before the Fed starts to cut, unfortunately, but we still, we're going to hear from them next week. So maybe they'll become a little less hawkish, give us some hints on what they're planning on doing in the next quarter. But rates are still affordable. We're still making our way.
Would you say we're still in the high 6s, or are we seeing?
We're kind of back in the 7s again. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it depends on everybody's situation. Right. But yeah, we're high
scores,
6s, low 7s.
Income,
yeah.
How much down payment you have.
Exactly. There are a lot of factors that contribute to your rate, but I think the national average over the last couple of days has jumped back up over 7%
Well, let's hope by next week that those numbers are better.
I will do my best. I'm reacting to, I wish I could control interest rates, but I don't. It's mostly the bond market that does that. And it does react to what's happening, especially with the Federal Reserve and the inflation numbers. So, we'll just kind of keep our eyes ahead and see what the Fed has to say next week.
And as we continue to say, don't let that stop you. If you're going to buy, because who knows? We had predicted at the beginning of the year that we thought that come March, we were going to be we were hoping low 6s, high 5s.
Right. And it looked that way when when things started coming down so quickly as they did at the end of last year. But we say date the rate and marry the house, right?
You're going to hear that a lot from us, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Because you get into the house now, you find a good deal, have some leverage on the buy side, and then refinance later on down the road.
Okay. Well, call Patrick if you have more questions about interest rates.
720-988-7664.
Do you want to do like a radio where you have to repeat yourself?
Patrick Williams with the mortgage company. 720. No, I don't.
No, okay. I was like, wow, he's doing it.
No. So there was some news that came out this morning about the NAR and their settlement this morning. So maybe you can fill us in a little bit on that. So once again,
this is Friday, March 15th. And so NAR just sent out a NAR, National Association of Realtors, who, if you're a realtor, you have to be a part of NAR. So you can be a broker that sells houses, but not be an actual realtor. So we pay into NAR. So if you're a realtor, you have to be a part of NAR. So they are a big, they cover, what am I trying to say? Most realtors, most real estate agents are realtors.
But not all real estate agents are realtors.
No.
And so what's the difference? I mean, I know we're maybe getting a little off track here because I want to hear more about this settlement, but as a realtor and being a part of the National Association of Realtors, how does that make
just more education, more you belong to also, I belong to SMEDRA, which is South Metro Denver Realtors Association.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they also require you to be a part. So we have to take an ethics class, some more education.
So is there maybe just a higher standard?
Yes, correct. A higher standard. So
you would
I've been a realtor my whole life. I've never not been one.
So you would recommend only working with realtors?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Good job. So anyways, NAR, National Association of Realtors.
Yes.
If you haven't heard, there's been a lot of lawsuits out there just discussing commissions and how realtors get paid. And so NAR just settled a $410 million settlement with sellers. There's a whole bunch of people, I believe, that are
in the state of Missouri, is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure if this is in the state of Missouri because there's, Remax, Keller Williams, all these big name brokerages were one. I don't know if this is the same lawsuit or not, but I know that it will affect all the other lawsuits. So there's also more lawsuits in this one also that are still going on.
So this is an ongoing kind of saga that has been kind of affecting realtors and commissions, and it's been a little bit up in the air.
It has been for a little while. We've been talking about it for over a year since the lawsuit started. People are starting to settle. Like I said, bigger companies are settling, and now the National Association of Realtors is settling. And so what does this mean? Well, so how it used to work, right? And this is, I don't know, this change is supposed to, start I don't know if it starts now because they haven't signed off on it yet. So it sounds like both parties have agreed, but they're waiting for the courts to sign off. But what it sounds like is, as real estate brokers, how we used to do it, and of course, I must say all commission is negotiable. Even before this came out, commissions were always negotiable. But usually the seller paid realtors, right? The buyer and seller side. So if you're selling a house, usually the sellers would tell their listing broker, hey, I am going to charge once again, negotiable, a 6% commission, and I'm going to give half of that commission, right, to the buying agent who brings a buyer in.
So I don't know that most people even know that, is that as a buyer, you don't actually pay the commission to your realtor. The seller of the house that you go and buy, that is who actually pays your realtor.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So I don't know that most people know that.
I mean, if you have an agent, you can do it, transaction broker or a buyer broker,
Sure.
but most people, have a buyer broker and you want one, right? Because the person who lists the house is representing the seller. So you want, as a buyer, to be represented by a buyer's agent who represents you. Now, that is not going to change. That will continue to stay the same. Where it could change is, hey, sellers are going to say, hey, I don't want to pay the buyer broker fee. Not that they ever had to begin with.
It's negotiable.
It's negotiable, but they're thinking that it could change the way that buyers pay their realtor. So you could go out and be someone who is not represented, and you could, not have anyone represent you, or you could get someone that represents you, and then you can negotiate with the buyer's broker, right? The buyer's realtor.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to pay you this if you buy a house, or I'm going to show you this. And where we think, it could cause an issue is now not only are buyers having to worry about their fees, right, for lending.
Yeah, there's a lot of closing costs associated with the loan.
And they could have to start to worry about, hey, this buyer broker now that represents me, I'm going to have to pay. And so it's another fee. Now, of course, we can always continue to negotiate that, which I think is what will happen. I think realtors who have been in this business for a long time will have a conversation with sellers and say, hey, you should offer this. Because, what they're saying is that things could go to like a flat fee. And we have some flat fee real estate companies that already do this. We've also had some where they charge a lesser percentage. Once again, all commission is negotiable, right?
Some might call a discount.
Discount, a discount, where they charge a lesser fee, a percentage, maybe not a flat fee. Yeah. And so those models are already around.
But it's not, everything is negotiable and up in the air right now. This settlement, we still don't really have much information on what that means.
So I think so the big part that I think that will be hard for real estate brokers is they are not going to let realtors advertise in our multiple listing service, whether or not what the commission is, right? And so as a buyer broker, you have a contract with the buyer that says, hey, I'm going to work for you, and for my services, you're going to pay me X amount, whether that's a flat fee or a percentage. So let's say that we say, hey, you're going to pay me 2.8% of the purchase price of the home. So now we're going to go out and look at houses, or how it could happen in the future here, coming soon, right? Okay. After this is all settled, is that we could go out and look at a house. We are going to have no idea if the seller is going to give any money to help pay you for your broker. So let's say we're buying a house, we decide to negotiate it. Now we're going to have to negotiate not only the price of the house, whether or not the seller is paying, and then have a conversation with you as a buyer. Is like, hey, I'm only, going to make X amount. In our contract, it says we're going to make 2.8.
So this could be a big issue on the buy side. This is what I'm hearing from you is like, we talk about one of the biggest barriers is down payment, right? And so as a buyer, you're already having to come and save up quite a bit of money, especially in the Denver market with the home prices that we have. And now what you're saying, it's possible that they might also have to come up with an additional up to 2.8% to close so they can have somebody who represents them and make sure that their interests are protected.
So where do we think this is going to hurt? We think it could hurt buyers. Like, what if buyers decide, hey, I don't want to be represented? They may be getting taken advantage of, or maybe not. We don't know. But, unfortunately, some sellers thought that it was unfair for sellers to pay for buyer brokerage, and now it may cause a different issue where buyers maybe are not getting represented and could walk into deals that are maybe worse for them.
Well, I would definitely recommend, no matter what, using somebody who understands the real estate contract, understands real estate law. It is very complicated. And so I see where your concern is that, well, I'm just not going to have somebody.
So I don't have to pay this fee.
Yeah.
But, there could be sellers, and hopefully, we're professionals. I've been in the business over 20 years. I think the people who do real estate full-time already have these discussions with sellers. Yeah. I know I have for many years. I have these discussions with buyers. I think it will change a little bit, but we'll just have to see, as this, like I said, is just rolling out today. We're going to have to see where the big changes are, but it is the big talk. It just hit this morning, hit my email inbox at 8:30 a.m. this morning, and I've already had calls and texts about it and what this means. And so I think before everyone runs and gets scared, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Some dust needs to settle.
Yeah.
This is, and I feel like
this is
this is big news. We've heard RE/MAX settled. We heard Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams, like a lot of, but now we're at the NAR.
NAR,
right?
National
And so that seems like that was kind of the big one. And now that has happened, we're going to start to see some changes in the industry.
Correct.
We just don't know what they're going to look like yet.
And so we'll keep you updated, and we're hoping that it doesn't affect the public. If it's just about realtors, that's one thing, but this really will eventually affect, I think, the public. And so we'll see, and it could be something that maybe needs another tweak in 3 years or 4 years. But as because they used to not pay buyer brokers, now they do. So we'll just have to play it out and see what happens.
There's always evolutions.
Correct.
And we went
the
through one.
Swing,
we went through one in mortgage, right? With all of the changes after 2008.
Right.
And so I think there's some things that happen that are good, but I also think sometimes more like regulation and oversight is not always necessarily good.
No,
it can actually just cost everybody more.
Correct.
So we'll have to see how things turn out on this, but I appreciate you giving us the insight, because a lot of it for me, I try to read up just because I am in the industry, but it's still a lot of it goes over my head, because I'm like, I don't understand how this affects this or that. So thank you for breaking that down for us.
Yeah, I hope I broke it down enough anyways for now. And like I said, we'll see what happens as we continue to move forward with this. It doesn't take part until July of this year, or June. I can't remember.
The effective part of
June,
the settlement? Okay.
July. The change will go into effect July 2024.
Okay.
So
that's not that far away.
No.
It's 120
March,
days.
April, May, June, July.
Yeah, that's right. It's okay. I work in finance, and I find myself counting on my fingers sometimes as well.
July is 7th month.
7th, and we're in the third
month.
So that's 4 months away. Well, I think on that note, maybe we call it.
I
are we
think
good
we
here?
call it.
Okay.
So hey, hopefully you learned something, and
I think I did.
Good.
Yeah.
And I learned something too, that interest rates are still not what I like.
I hope I have better news next week.
I hope you do too.
Yeah.
But hey, we hope to see you guys next week. And until then, have a good week.
Yeah, if you found this podcast valuable, make sure to share us, like us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
Bye.